I'm from Oregon. Currently I live in Central Oregon. I was born and raised in Southern Oregon. Started collecting bottles in 1963, and by 1967 I was collecting strictly insulators. In the early 60s, as a kid, I watched all the westerns on TV, Gunsmoke and Paladin and all of those shows, and I had an uncle who was actually a cowboy. He ran a ranch in Arizona, and we went to visit him one summer and found out he collected bottles, old bottles. He collected old purple whiskey bottles and such that he would find out there on the ranch. And it just seemed to me that if a real cowboy could collect bottles, then I could collect bottles too. So my dad and I started hunting things together. 60s was kind of a little bit late for bottles. Most of the good dumps had been dug in the 50s. We'd go to a dump that had been dug previously. We were hoping we were the first, but we wouldn't be the first. But the people who had dug the bottles, if they found insulators, they'd leave them up on top of the hole and leave them behind. And so we'd go dig bottles and come home with insulators because somebody else had already dug them but left them behind. So that perked our interest in insulators. And so everything that I keep has some kind of emotional attachment to it. In 1974, I was working an old telegraph line in Southern Oregon, postal telegraph line. And I found a standing pole that had a crossarm full of insulators on it yet. And on one side, 3 of the insulators were California CD28s. And the other side had Aqua 4840 CD152s. I still have one of those, purple Californias that I came off that pole. So yeah, I've something with an emotional attachment, something my dad found, something my mother liked, something my wife found, my kids found, something I might have found in an antique shop, but most of the stuff we have is stuff we found in the wild. My first connection with the NIA was in the mid-1970s. Ernie Rostock was the second NIA president, and I had met Ernie, and he needed someone to represent him, to do the work of what the other officers all do nowadays. And so I was the position, it's called secretary nowadays. The position at the time was called executive director. So suddenly I became the executive director of the NIA. 2002, I was elected Western Regional Vice President and served for the 3 years after that. I received an Outstanding Service Award for a program I started that I called Insulators for Kids. It takes personal contact. It takes being a mentor, being willing to share your knowledge and your experience with other people. This is a great show here in Utah. It's fabulous. Lots of people coming, and I'm having a wonderful time here.